I've been to the Mountaintop, given on April 3rd, and he was assassinated the next day, April 4th. Dear Dr. King, I'm a ninth grade student at the White Plains High School. And she said, while it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering, and I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze.
Susquehanna University alumni Darrell Lawrence Willis Sr. was at Susquehanna on Thursday afternoon to give a reading from Dr. Martin Luther King's "I Have Been to the Mountaintop" speech.
After leaving Susquehanna, I went all over the country, and I remember a conversation that I had with Dr. King's oldest daughter, his first child, Yolanda King. We were down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, at the National Black Theater Festival, and so I was locked on an elevator because the elevator broke down with Yolanda King, and she looked at me and she said, "What are you doing?" She said, "You look like an actor." I said, "Yes, I'm an actor." And she said, "What are you working on right now?" I said, "The Meeting." And The Meeting is a 2-character piece with Dr. King and Malcolm X. And she said, "Well, by the looks of you," she said, "you must be playing daddy." She said, because she looked at me and she said, "Because you're not tall like Malcolm and you are rather pleasantly plump." So I took that, and then she looked and got quiet in the elevator, and she said, you can ask me 3 questions. And then I asked her, what was it like the last year of his life? And she said it was really absolutely terrible. One thing I remember was the fact that she said he started smoking more cigarettes. If you look at any picture that you see of Dr. King, you will pretty much never see him with a cigarette in his hand, except for there was one picture where he's smoking a cigarette. He's in a bus stop, and it's held down in his hand very, very low. And then probably the scariest thing was she said that during the last year of his life, he had a very, very hard time keeping his food down.
I would say it was very empowering, and I definitely, even though it wasn't like he was simply reading the speech, he read it with such energy and passion that you could just feel it, just like the passion reverberating in your body, and you felt as kind of like the people who were originally listening to the speech felt, just like that empowerment and that hope, and just that hope for a better future.
And they were telling me now it doesn't really matter now. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. And the pilot said over the public address system, "We're sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane. And to be sure that all the bags were checked, and to be sure that nothing would be wrong on the plane, we had to check out everything and everybody, and we've had the plane protected and guarded all night." And then I got into Memphis, and some began to say the talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I'd like to live a long life because longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountaintop. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. Now I want to tell you that I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm so happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. I'm not fearing any man. I'm not worried about anything. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So hearing to the mountaintop, I think, is important for younger audiences because it has this understanding that a movement is not one person. Like everyone says the civil rights movement stopped in 1968 because that's when Dr. King was assassinated, but it technically didn't. And I think about that a lot, how officially that would be the ending of that time. But in 1968, like we graduated our first African American person from Susquehanna.
Just watching the speeches, like that's how important figures like Martin Luther King Jr. stay alive in history, because people keep going back, watching their videos, reading their speeches and their work.